Chapter 11. The Meeting of Six. Once we had finished bringing King Merrick and Tirnlo Gain up to speed, Farron, Triana, and I spent the rest of the day preparing to meet the other origins. Farron ordered our armor to be polished to a mirror shine and had the servants prepare my best garnet and gold gambeson. This gambeson had gold studs, with House Oradoom's sigil stamped into them. Farron also made sure that I wore the jewelry he and Triana had given to me. I also decided to wear the old cape that Trian had given me as an Aramis cloak over my left shoulder. Farron would wear his armor as he always did, while Triana decided to wear a set of black and green armor made from beautiful Bronto leather. The floral designs stitched into it were elegant, made from silver thread. The three of us discussed what we would go over with the others once we'd met them. Farron and I had only met Serena those few years ago when she visited with Marek and Logain. Serena and I had kept in touch through letters, but we mostly shared important news, generally how we were doing. She didn't share anything about the other origins apart from the fact that she had found them, their names, and they were safe. This was intentional, though. We didn't want to give away too much in case the correspondence was intercepted somehow. I had asked if we needed to bring food for the dinner, but was given reassurances that King Merrick was having the meeting catered by his own chefs. At the appointed hour, we were escorted to the tent that had been set up for us. There were royal guards from House Kusland, House Amel, and now I was adding House Oradoom guards to the mix. One of the royal guards pulled back the opening to the tent and announced us, Paragon Merida Oradoom, Princess of Orzammar, and her escorts, Lord Farron Oradoom, and Lady Triana of Clan Sabray. As we passed through the entrance, the guard closed it behind us. Inside was a large, round table, set with ornate chairs and several dozen candles. The aroma of the food had my mouth watering as I caught the scent of food I hadn't eaten since before I was reincarnated. Around the table sat Serena, a human male and a male elf. The human let out a long whistle. That's an impressive series of titles. Alan, Serena scolded the young man, act accordingly. Serena stood from her chair and bowed. Paragon Oradoom, it's been far too long. I'm glad to see you doing so well. I dipped into a curtsy. Lady Kusland, you've grown since the last time we met. That got a laugh from Serena. I could say the same for you. You've certainly sprouted since we last met. We laughed together before I looked at the two people I didn't know. Proper introductions are in order. I am Princess Merida Oradoom of Orzammar. Farron stepped forward, bowing his head. I'm Farron Oradoom, Lady Oradoom's personal guard. Triana of Clan Sabray, first of Clan Sabray, Triana offered. As you all know, I am Serena Kusland, Arl of Amaranthine. Serena joined in. The human stood and offered a sweeping bow. I am Alan Amel, head of House Amel. The elf stood and bowed his head. Aelfric, Ban of the Denerim Alien Edge. Now that we've all introduced ourselves, I have a question, Alan said as he pointed at Farron. We all have unique names, Farron, but your name is a default name. Why is that? Farron chuckled. I thought you would have figured it out by now. I chose the default name before I was brought here. I always preferred to jump right in. No real need to choose a unique name. See? I told you so, Serena chuckled. Alan snapped his fingers and sighed. Well, I suppose my theory on how high the origins were in the social order has been debunked. Excuse me, but I looked around at the tables of food that were sitting nearby. Do I smell cornbread? Everyone looked at me in confusion for a few moments before they each erupted into laughter. I suppose we should eat and talk, or the Paragon will waste away to nothing, Aelfric said. Not that there's much of her to waste away as it is, Alan quipped. I huffed and lifted my chin haughtily as I made my way to the food. I may be short, but I outrank everyone in this room, so I get first dibs. That got a laugh from everyone. Even Farron started to loosen up a bit around others from the same world as us. We all fixed our plates and sat down around the table. Farine and Triana sat to either side of me while Serena, Alan, and Aelfric sat opposite of us. I was so excited. Apparently, Aelfric had made a name for himself as a cook in Denerim, making food from our world which helped to draw the attention from the nobles. He had taught the recipes to others for a hefty price, and use that gold to improve the alien edge, and over time, turn the alien edge into an area where people would go for specialty cuisine. I said a silent prayer to the stone as I looked at my plates. Cornbread, cranberry sauce, Keygen seasoned pork chops, mashed potatoes, buttermilk fried chicken, pork belly burnt ends, biscuits, pumpkin pie, and fruit cobbler. Someone was Southern, Aelfrek said as he watched me dig into my meal. I had tears welling in my eyes. I hadn't had these foods in almost 2 decades. It was a taste of home that brought back 1,000 memories. I actually started to cry. "My lady!" Ferran gasped as he reached over to place a hand on my back. "Are you all right?" I nodded and sniffled, continuing to eat, and broke all etiquette as I spoke through a mouthful of food. "Yes, I'm sorry, it's just... These were some of my favorite foods from before. I haven't tasted them since then. I'm just... remembering so much that I haven't had the will to think about in so long." Triana's hand joined Farron's and rubbed my back. Aelfrek smiled. "I'm glad I could make something you loved. I tried to have the chefs make as many types of dishes that I remembered in the hopes that something would be from a general region we might have come from." We ate in silence for several minutes as everyone enjoyed a little taste of home. When everyone, other than Farron and myself, seemed content with how much they'd had, dwarves can really pack away the food, Serena began to outline what all we needed to discuss. "So, now that we've mostly all had our fill," Serena chuckled, "I think we need to outline what we need to discuss, then go over everything in detail. First, I think we should each go over what we've done to build up our resources and avoid some of the worst things that could happen." "I figure you can start then, Serena," Alan said as he leaned back in his chair. "It seems to be your show at the moment." Serena looked over at me and chuckled as I smiled up at her with a mouthful of food. "I suppose I could go first. As you all know, I'm the human noble origin. House Kuzlin didn't have many issues to handle other than Arl Howe. Lady Merida gave me the idea I needed to deal with him. Everyone looked at me for an explanation, but I was currently stuffing my face with fried chicken and waved a drumstick at Serena for her to continue. Serena laughed and explained. She had a dwarf from the surface caste approach Arl Howe with false plans about the ground beneath Castle Kuzland. The plans detailed false gas pockets that would kill the inhabitants of the castle if the gases somehow leaked to the surface. Howe was stupid enough to sign a contract detailing the plan for the dwarves to dig tunnels up to the castle to funnel the gases through them, and he was even more foolish to pay with heirlooms of his house. I agreed with a mouthful of pumpkin pie. The dwarf then brought the contract with Howe's signature and the heirlooms as proof to King Merrick, Serena finished explaining. Once the king saw this, he confronted Howe and stripped him of the Arling, which he turned over to me as a dowry for my marriage to Alistair. I wiped my mouth and smiled. "I'm looking forward to attending the wedding. When will that be?" "After the blight is handled," Serena said. "But with the Arling now in my possession, we've fortified Vigil's Keep and worked to help bolster Amarantine's port presence, with help from the dwarven surface caste's surge in commerce." "Wait," Aelfrek interrupted. "If you have control of the Arling, why aren't an Arl?" "She isn't married yet," Triana guessed. "She gets the title when she marries Alistair." "Correct," Serena confirmed with a nod. "At the moment, I'm a caretaker until the title is officially passed on after the marriage. Now, who's next?" "I guess I'll go next," Alan volunteered. "It took me some time, but I managed to rise up in the circle to the point where I could pass my harrowing early. When Serena and King Merrick came to the circle and took me with them, I focused my efforts on reorganizing my house." "Isn't that seated in Kirkwall, in the Free Marches?" Farron asked. Alan nodded in confirmation. "Yes, King Merrick escorted me there. My great-aunt and uncles were still alive, though they were dealing with a bout of cholera. We managed to save them just in time, and I proved to Uncle Aristide that I could lead the house to future greatness. He forgave his daughter, but I was named head of the house after I proved to my uncle that Gamlin was simply spending the family's funds on gambling." "Wait!" I pounded a fist to my chest to help quickly swallow some of the Cajun pork. "Does that mean we have access to Hawk, Carver, and Bethany?" Alan smirked. "Garrett Hawk, yes. We also have Malcolm Hawk as well. You see, I had started to focus on elemental spells, but once I thought about what the main issues of the Amel family was, I specialized in healing magic." I leaned forward, eyes wide. But that means we can deal with Corypheus before he becomes an issue, right? Since Malcolm was the one who sealed him away? Alan nodded. I've spoken to him about it already. Corypheus is similar to an archdemon in that he can transfer his essence to anything tainted by the blight within a certain distance. Unfortunately, we don't know what that distance is. A problem for later, then, Triana mused. It would seem so, Alan admitted. It's almost a non-issue since he can't be released without someone from my bloodline performing the ritual to let him loose. Let's put that on the back burner then, Serena said. Aelfrek, why don't you go next? Aelfrek chuckled and motioned to me. Well, as you can see, I focused primarily on food to get to where I am. I admit I started as a thief and developed my skills there for a few years, till a guard in Denerim sneered at me that knife ears like me should at least be able to contribute something worthwhile to society. For some reason, that really struck home, and I had to think about what it was that I could do that no one else could, Aelfric continued. So I remembered that I could cook, and that the food here is lacking in overall flavor. I was a chef before, so I figured I could be again. I opened a small stall in the market district. The humans wrecked it a few times, but eventually, enough people tried my food that no one would attack the stall anymore. Eventually, I was able to open a small restaurant, kind of the first in Denerim. I can see why. I'm going to eat as much of this as I can before we leave, I said, still very much enraptured by the taste of the food. Aelfrek laughed. And that's the very reason I got to where I am today. My food became so popular that nobles began taking up every seat for every meal. My reputation reached Serena and King Merrick's. When they came to see me, Serena discussed who we were. The king hired me to teach his cooks how to make the foods. I bargained for more, though. I insisted that he invest in the Ailey Edge so we could turn it into a space for culinary cuisine. The elves really dove into becoming chefs. It was relatively easy, and after a few months of lessons, they were beginning to create their own culinary goods. I looked at Farin with wide, excited eyes. We're going to Denerim after all this is over with. That elicited a chuckle from everyone. Aelfrek continued. With the culinary renaissance I brought to the city, I was named the Elder of the Alien Edge, and King Merrick named me a ban and granted the Alien Edge to me so that I could continue to help it prosper. Though, I have to say, the Dwarven Surface caste really helped with procuring the spices and goods needed to make some of the confections we created. So I'm rather grateful for your efforts, Lady Merida. Just send one of your chefs to Orzammar to cook for me from now on, and we'll call it even, I squeaked, as I gazed at the slice of pumpkin pie I was about to eat. Serena laughed. Who's next? Farin? Farin shrugged. There's not much to tell. I had convinced my mother to start a small stall to earn money. It accomplished my primary goal, which was to grab the attention of the dwarf noble origin. Since then, Lady Merida has worked diligently to elevate my family and care for us. So I've done whatever I could to support her. She has the power and influence to get things done for our people. Wait, Alan said, leaning forward. So you've basically done nothing but guard Lady Merida. You didn't change things or make plans? Why should I? Farron asked. Lady Merida's plans were the same plans I would have had, but she already had the power to influence things. I would have had to work this long just to be able to talk to a noble to start the process. Dedicating myself to protecting the person who could get things done faster just made sense. If nothing else, my plan was to keep her alive so that she could do just that. I smiled at Farron. And I thank you so much for that, Farron. I couldn't have asked for a more dedicated partner. Triana? Serena asked. I know I took you away from what you were doing when we met and sent you to Orzammar. Have you been able to do much while there? Triana looked at me and I gave a reaffirming nod. Tell them. Very well, Triana began. I was, and still am, the first of Clan Sabrai. I have kept in close contact with my clan through messages over the years. Before I left, I had nearly figured out the secret to activating the Alluvian network. And you stopped her from doing something so useful? Alan asked Serena incredulously. It was necessary to keep us all safe, Serena defended herself. What's done is done, Triana interrupted the squabble before it could really take off. I admit, I was angry at first, but there were benefits in going to Orzammar. Lady Merida and I were able to work on our magic, researched the darkspawn, and worked with my clan to direct them on which steps to take to prepare for the blight. Such as, Alan prodded. To hunt down the Ilarian clan and bring them together, Triana explained. We also directed them to call the Boranane, Ralafarin, and Ghilain clans to an Arlathven. Lady Merida and I were able to attend the meeting since it was held near Orzammar. We were able to convince the elves of the truth about some of our traditions, and convince them to join together into a singular elven clan. They'll be ready to join us soon. That's actually really impressive, Serena said as she thought about it. I can't imagine all of that went over smoothly. There had to be some blowback. Triana nodded. There was. It took months to convince them, and I still need King Marich's help to finalize some of the promises I made. As a fellow elf, I have to ask, Aelfrek cut in, what promises would need King Marich's help? You're talking about the Dalish elf epilogue, aren't you? Serena gasped. Wait, what? Aelfrek nearly jumped out of his seat. You mean you're actually going to ask him for... I won't be asking for anything, Triana quickly corrected Aelfrek. It is the price for the aid of the Dalish, and I have Lady Merida's assurance that she will stand by me in my request. I've seen how she's worked to improve the lives and treatment of her people, and I will be doing the same for the elves. We won't be second-class citizens anymore. Everyone went silent for several moments before Serena cleared her throat. Well, Merida, care to let everyone know what you've been up to? I choked down a mouthful of fruit cobbler and dabbed my mouth with a napkin. Delicious! Oh, and yes, I'd be happy to. I sat up straight and smiled. So far, I've managed to establish the surface caste, which has helped to create more upward momentum among the dwarves, and brought more wealth to Orzammar in generations. It also seems to have helped a few of you in the process. We also managed to retake Idukanthaig, Ortanthaig, and Kadashthaig, re-establishing them as functioning cities as the first steps toward recreating the Dwarven Empire. You already took back the Thaigs? Serena asked in shock. I thought you were going to wait till King Marich could bring his men to reinforce your people. And how did you even find Ortanthaig? You needed directions when we last met. I got them from Tirn Logain, I explained. He sent me the directions after we exchanged a few letters. I was going to wait for the humans, but the resources that the surface caste brought in was beyond what even my most favorable estimations could have believed. So, I figured we should start right away. We took Idukanthaig the year after we met. Then we took the Ortan and Kadashtaigs as well. Serena, Alan, and Aelfrek stared at me in stunned silence. Farron and Triana have been by my side this entire time, I continued, helping me every step of the way. We've fought against thousands of darkspawn and managed to kill about a dozen broodmothers. So you've already been fighting the darkspawn all this time? Alan asked. What did you expect? Farron asked. We're dwarves, and the darkspawn are a constant threat. Still, it's one thing to go up against a few roaming bands, Aelfrek said. It's something entirely different to go through the deep roads and retake the Lost Thaigs. Alan laughed. What are you trying to do, become Queen of the Dwarves? No, I shook my head. I'm just trying to do what I can for my people. Well, I suppose that covers what we've all been up to, Serena said. So what's next on the agenda? Shouldn't we discuss our plans for the Blight? Triana suggested. You all arrived before we did and have been working pretty diligently for a few months now, Aelfrek said. Why don't you tell us what you have planned so far? Very well, I called from the food tables. I had begun filling up a third plate. We brought enough supplies to basically rebuild the fort, but we're focused on repairing it and reinforcing it for now. By the time we're done with it, it'll be good as new. We've also brought supplies to build barracks and other proper facilities for long-term use, Triana added. Once the fort itself is ready, we'll be building permanent housing and other structures. And as far as tactics go, Farron joined in on the explanation, we've brought 1,000 of House Oradum's warriors, as well as warriors from other noble houses. We have nearly 300 Bronto for our cavalry units, all with their own armor and are already used to charging through darkspawn ranks. What about the Daish elves? Aelfrek asked Triana. Didn't you mention they were planning to help? They'll be here for the battle, don't you worry, Triana reassured him. What about the rest of you? I asked after I sat back down, balancing a few plates on my arms and setting them in front of me. I saw a lot of soldiers arrive with you, and noticed the materials as well. King Merrick said you were planning on doing repairs to the fort and then scouting the wilds? Serena nodded. I figured that since we had a few years to make things work, we could repair the fort, then get the lay of the land so we could prepare traps to cut down the Darkspawn's numbers before they made it to the fort. If it weren't for Loghain pulling out of the fight, Kaelin could have won the Battle of Ostagar in the game. They had the numbers and the strategy, Alan reminded everyone. So we figured if we could prepare for the battle ahead of time, the fight would become even easier. Oh, Faren, Triana, and I said in unison. The disappointment in our voices must have been obvious because Serena's face flushed red. What do you mean, oh? Why change what works? Because we still need a piece of the puzzle that Loghain didn't approve of in the game, I said. We still need the Grey Wardens, and we do all remember how Loghain acted when Kaelin depended on the Wardens, right? He won't argue against King Merrick, Serena insisted. The Wardens have already been welcomed back into Ferelden by the king. They were welcomed back by King Merrick in the game as well, I counterread. And Loghain didn't agree with the invitation then either. Some caution is warranted. I'd say that's fair, Aelfric chimed in. The man is still a curmudgeon, and while he may be loyal to the king, we don't know how strained that loyalty might be when we have to depend on the Wardens to finish off the Archdemon. Serena and Alan shared a look that said they didn't like it, but they'd accept it. Anyway, I quickly added, having more options on top of what we know works is only a good thing. Let's move on to our future plans after Ostagar, Serena suggested. Well, now that I've heard what Triana has in store, my plans might be changing, Aelfric laughed. What? Serena gasped. But we had planned on you working to expand the alien edge and working on human-elf relations in Denerim. That's true, Aelfric apologized, but if Triana is essentially setting up a new elven territory, I can bring my people here to help establish the place as a new culinary center. That could help with relations by bringing visitors to us, where we could share more of our culture. That news seemed to irritate Serena, but she shrugged it off. As far as I'm concerned, Serena offered, I plan on turning High Ever into the largest port city in Ferelden, and making the market in Redcliffe seem puny by comparison. The Arling will thrive with all of the extra trade. As for me, I want the circles abolished in favor of magical colleges, Alan said. I intend on changing the circle in Kirkwall first, using my family's influence. The Chantry has no right to oversee the private lives of others. I tend to agree, I nodded. The Chantry have taken their duty to guard the people against Maleficarum too far. It's become an institution of prison slaves who are only let out if their families are rich enough to bribe the Chantry or the kingdoms therein have need of their mage's power. That's right, Alan said thoughtfully. You're a mage, aren't you? I remember hearing the mages in the tower speaking excitedly about a dwarven princess who could cast spells. How did that work? The same way I'm a mage, Triana lied for me, starting the game with mods. So it was our character class choices that determined what we are, Aelfric hummed. I think that freeing the circles is something we can all agree on, Farron said. The question is, how to go about it. The Chantry won't release their hold on the mages without a fight, and the Templars' addiction to lyrium is another reason they won't want to let the mages go. Well, we can do something about the lyrium supply, I smirked. Dwarves are the only ones who can mine it safely. Cutting off the supply would only upset the Chantry and the Circle at the same time. Alan shook his head. It's not a good solution. We don't need to cut off the supply, I said through a mouthful of pie. We can increase the price, making it so that the Chantry is forced to use the supply in a more effective manner. Kingdoms will insist on their circles using the lyrium to enchant weapons and armor, and creating other magical items. The Chantry will say they need the lyrium for their Templars. They'll solve that problem themselves. In the meantime, we'll offer Alan's college the lyrium at a premium rate as a way for the dwarves to endorse more life-assuring methods of mage training. That could actually work, Alan mused. It doesn't deny the supply, but it would increase the demand. That could be an excellent first step, Merida. I'd ask what Farron's plans are, Aelfric said, but I'm pretty sure he would just say whatever Lady Merida has planned. That's not true, Farron growled. I am going to help Lady Oradoom every step of the way, but while I do that, I also plan on rising to become the High Commander of Orzammar. I will reorganize Orzamar's forces into specialized branches, which will give even the casteless the chances to rise up into the warrior class. That will take a lot of effort and pulling a lot of strings, Serena finally spoke again. I'll need to prove myself in battle, Farron agreed, but I won't need to pull a single string. Lady Oradum has already assured me that she would use her influence to make the reorganization happen. It's one more way for us to improve the lives of our people, I smiled at Farron with cheeks packed with pork bites. And what about you? Serena asked me. Are you still determined to achieve the same goals you told me about when we spoke in Orzammar? I nodded firmly. I am. After this, Blight there will still be 2 more old gods left. Razikale, the Dragon of Mystery, and Lusakan, the Dragon of Night. There might be a 3rd that the Chantry wiped from the records, but I can't remember if that was ever confirmed or not. I'm still determined to hunt them down while they're sleeping, and kill them before they can be used to start their own blights. You certainly don't lack ambition, Aelfric hummed. How do you propose to find their prisons? It's not like that information is readily available. True, I admitted. But I know who does know how to find out where the prisons are. So once this business in Ostagar is done, I'll work with my people for some time to secure the deep roads around the Tigers, then make my way to get that information. The meeting went on for another few hours, discussing plans for Ostagar, scouting the wilds, and other things of a more casual nature. Serena revealed that she had managed to gather a few of the other party members from the game, namely Wynne, Morrigan, and Leliana, with Alistair as her betrothed, and Ogren and Shale in Orzammar and Kadash Taig. We had nearly everyone we could get our hands on. By the time we were finished, Farron and I had nearly emptied the table of the food, and I took a pumpkin pie back to my quarters for myself. Over the next 2 weeks, we all met a few more times, and I explained the changes we would be making to the fort to help make the original strategy more sound. Triana and I also met with King Marich to make the offer of giving the hinterlands and Ostagar to the Dalish after the Blight. I informed the king that Orzammar would support this proposition, as it would give the elves a place to call their own within the realm and would help to ease relations between elves and humans, and might serve as a cultural buffer between Ferelden's and the Chasen tribes of the Kokiri Wilds. In the end, Marich said he would agree to the proposition so long as I could guarantee that dwarves would serve as intermediaries in the case of any problems between the humans and elves. Those first 2 weeks with everyone there were busy with everyone trying to fit into the overall business of restoring the fort, scouting the area, and training the troops. It was refreshing to have so many extra people there, and getting to meet Morrigan, Wynne, and Leliana was a treat as well.